All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm Chef Stearns from the Southeast Dairy Business Innovation Initiative. This is the second in the Assessing Value-Added Dairy Business Expansion Workshop Series, which is being put on by the Center for Profitable Agriculture in partnership with MTSU and Penn State. And without further ado, I'm going to hand things over to Matthew Wade, who is the director of the MTSU Farm Laboratory.
All right, Chef, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys letting me be here and be a part of this presentation series. It's been a lot of fun working with Hal and Sarah, and I appreciate them allowing us to come on and share our story, basically, from our MTSU Creamery viewpoint. Hopefully there's some things today that you'll be able to connect with, some things that you will be able to maybe take away and maybe help you with a shortcut to something that may save you some time and effort later on. So just real briefly, again, I'm Matthew Wade, director of the MTSU Farm Laboratories. We have many different units, including beef, cattle, and swine unit, crops, gardens. We have our dairy and our creamery as well. So, and of course, today we're going to focus on the creamery. My folks are processing today, as a matter of fact. So you guys are getting me out of the processing plant for a little while today. So otherwise, I'll probably be back there helping them bottle that wonderful chocolate milk. So just to give you a quick rundown. I'm going to start sharing my screen. I just have some very few small slides here. It's nothing out of the ordinary. Let's see if I can do this again. Hopefully you guys can see that. Little history on the MTSU milk side of things. We have actually had dairy cattle on our campus since the inception of MTSU in 1911. I was looking back at some very interesting records the other day that show every student was giving 160th of an acre on campus, where they were in charge of helping to grow a garden plot for the cafeteria. And they were also, someone was in charge of milking the one Jersey cow that we had on campus to provide milk and butter products for the cafeteria on campus. So we can actually claim we've had dairy cattle here since the beginning of our campus. In 1922 or 1920, I'm sorry, we actually graduated our first agriculture class from the program. It was just an animal husbandry type class, but in 1920, we did that. And in 1922, I actually have a picture of a dairy barn that sat right behind my office here. And it has a picture of a bunch of Jersey cows out front, about 30, I believe is what the record says. And a lot of folks dressed up, in the ladies in their nice dresses where the collar went all the way up to their neck and, all the way to the ground, and the gentlemen in their bow ties. And they were celebrating, I assume, another graduating class from the ag department. And that picture to me is important here later on in our conversation. I'll bring that back up to you. In 1914, that the barn that I'm talking about, it was actually built. And so I just want to bring that up to you as well. So we've been in the dairy business a long time. I was looking at some other records that said in all through the 1920s and 30s and 40s, they were actually bottling the milk in the old glass bottle. And hopefully what you see on the screen in front of you right now is one of the old wax tops from those bottles. Apparently MTSU didn't emboss any of the bottles with our name on it or anything like that. I've not been able to find one of those, but that's from Middle Tennessee State College, as it was known, I guess, back then. And so I have several of those wax tops, which are a pretty neat heritage piece for us. I want to fast forward now to 1968. In 1968, the building that I'm in now was completed and opened. And within that building, what is and remains even to this day, our creamery. And so in 1968, they moved out of the old barn where they were just bottling by hand and doing raw milk and that sort of thing to a modern pasteurized pasteurizing system with homogenizer, with a separator, the whole deal. And at that time, they stopped bottling. They went to a 100% bagging operation. And so, and what the reason for that was at the time, the cafeterias had moved to a modern dispenser type milk machine where you just put the 5-gallon bag in it and the student would walk up with the glass and just fill their own glass. And actually, we still have that on campus today. A lot of our operations, current operations, involve bagging 5-gallon milk, skim, 2%, and of course, whole white milk and chocolate milk. So we stopped bottling the milk in 1968, basically. And for the next 50 years, the alumni kept asking, when are you going to bottle milk again? When are you going to bring this back to us in a way that we can actually carry it home and a way we can buy it in the store? And so it's something that for years campus looked into and thought about and tried to understand. And so in 2013, they actually hired me to come in. And that's kind of where I had this setting the stage. They hired me because my background is agricultural business. That's what my major is. My minor is marketing. Several years ago, I went back and got my MBA. And so that business side of farm management is why they brought me in. And so at that point, I was given the charge to basically start a bottling operation for the MTSU Creamery. And I got to be honest with you, I have run, beef cattle farms, walking horses. I've managed equestrian facilities over the years. I've done those things, but it had been a long time since I'd even milked a cow. I milked all through college, but it'd been a long time. And I honestly didn't know a lot about the processing side of the business. I had a huge learning curve ahead of me. So I jumped in both feet. And thank goodness at the time we had a plant manager, Liz Troop, who was just absolutely phenomenal. She grabbed my hand and took me to every training. I think she kind of pushed her way into many TDA trainings. I'm not sure if we were, I guess we were supposed to be there, but she made a path for us. And so I sat right beside many of the regulators at that time and took the training right with them just so I could get caught up to speed. And I jumped right in the milk plant and started processing with our milk plant manager, trying to learn everything and just soak it in. And at the same time, I was given the charge to start this thing. We had to have a plan. That's kind of what my department chair came to me and said, Matt, you've got to have a plan that we can take to our administration and start this thing. So for the first 6 months, all I did was basically work in the milk plant and write a business plan. And I can't emphasize enough how important that business plan was to me then and still is to me now. Now I need to update it, and I'm kind of in the process of working on it again because my business plan projected for 3 years out. We're now entering our 6th year, but not to get ahead of myself. So I sat down and started writing the business plan. And I'll be honest with you, I've been exposed to business plans, been involved in those things, in my business career, but to write the entire thing from start to finish was not always mine. And so, but I had to do it this time. And without having any pride issues, I looked around for some help doing that. And so the local Chamber of Commerce was a great place to start. Just to my good fortune, they were offering business class classes once a week for 6 or 8 weeks. I forget now. And of course, I had no pride issues. I knew I needed to get back into it and understand it. So went through the classes and got heavily involved in writing the business plan. And like I said, by January of 2014, I pretty much had the plan in place. I also found, might be a help to some of you out there, also found online, the financials are daunting when you start looking at adding a product line or adding some other type of business scale to what you're currently doing. The financials can be a little bit overwhelming. And so I actually found a service online where I could easily punch in my numbers, basically, from the information that I was able to get through talking to my target markets, through talking to our current vendors, how much milk are they interested in buying, and that sort of thing. Labor cost, cost of caps and bottles. I was able to punch a lot of those numbers in, and then this program, it was called Live Plan, by the way, if anyone's interested. It basically gave me the financials that I needed. So I kind of was able to shortcut some of that legwork, some of that number crunching work that I would have had to have done. So I completely encourage you, if you're in that situation, that you go out and look for some of these folks that can help you do these things. It doesn't have to be a daunting, straight uphill climb to write a business plan, to get together the financials for this. So those two things, Chamber of Commerce and finding this online service, were huge to me. So I was able to put those things together, came up with my business plan. And I'll see if I can grab the next slide. That's my business plan. Hopefully you can see that on the screen. That is pretty straightforward. It wound up being about 43 or 45 pages. I would advise you, if you're in the middle of this and you're working toward that end goal, that that's a lot of pages, and a lot of the descriptive part of the business plan that I wrote probably was for my benefit, as well as any potential administrative person or bank or grant. They probably wouldn't need to know as much information as I put in that, but a lot of it was because I was learning and understanding the business, and a lot of it was for my own benefit. Even the financials, I probably could have streamlined the financials a little bit, but I just wanted to make sure that anyone who was looking at my forecast and the financials that I had a complete understanding of what we're trying to do. So I completely encourage you to go on and use those online services, or Chamber of Commerce, local community college, whatever it is, to help you with the business plan. Because without a plan, you're setting yourself up for potential failure. With a plan, you're setting yourself up for potential failure. But with a plan, you can go back and see where something may have fallen off, or some point within the plan where, an error occurred that may have caused that failure at that moment, that you can go back and correct and have success later. So a plan gives you that advantage. So I encourage you to spend time writing this plan. So, the rest of our story kind of goes that I took this plan, showed it to my department chair, and you got to understand that in my environment, even though I'm on a university campus, I still have to go out and seek funding. I still am charged for campus services, which I'll tell you some of that later. So I have to spend money and make money just like one of your businesses. So a lot of the numbers that I may share with you today are real numbers and things that you will probably come across in your business as well. So I had this business plan. I'm so excited about it. I show it to my department chair. He loves it, thinks it's fantastic. And I think, okay, we're going to take this to the administration, and they're going to love it too. And because everybody's excited about it, everybody's encouraging me to go for it and make this thing happen. And so, I think, okay, the next thing they're going to do is, show them the business plan. They're going to love it. They're going to hand me a blank check, and I'm going to be able to move forward. Right. So we have the meeting with my dean, and I hand him the business plan, and he he's thumbing through it. He is loving it. He sees the numbers. He's a numbers guy. And he says, yeah, this is great. This will work. And at the end of the meeting, I'm pretty pumped up about, okay, we're going to move forward. This is going to happen. So at the end of the meeting, he closes the business plan, slides it back across the table, and looks at me and says, prove it. I'm like, I thought I just did, with this business plan. I thought I had proven it. The numbers were pretty solid. They come from my vendors. They come from solid research. They come from many hours of conversations with suppliers when it comes to bottles and bags and equipment and all these things. They're pretty solid numbers. Feel pretty good about it. But he said, you got to prove it. This administration is not going to give you a dime until you can prove that you can do this thing. And I thought, oh man, okay. I feel like I started back at square one again. And I had to stop and think about that a little bit. I thought, if I'm going to use this one day to help other folks, which I feel like in academia, that's our charge, is to be able to help other people through this type of situation. I had to imagine that, what, this is what a lot of folks out here doing this for real on their family farm. That's probably the same attitude they're going to get the first time they take this business plan to a bank or to a lending agency or someone that they're trying to take out a loan to do this value added product to the business they already have, whether it's ice cream or cheese or fluid milk, whatever it may be. And so I had to step back and kind of think of it with that mindset and go, okay, all right, this is not a setback. This is just another challenge, another opportunity to maybe find another avenue. And so does someone have a question? I hear. So I had to step back and look at it again and find these other funding opportunities, which hopefully this program that we're presenting to you now may be able to help some of you. This is kind of what this is all directed at, hopefully as an end product through what Hal and Sarah are really doing as well. So I started looking for grants. I went back, I took my business plan, and I started calling everyone I knew who has some type of grant funding opportunity, discussing that with them. That started a lot of phone calls and a lot of conversations, honestly, with TDA. I tell you, the TDA guys and gals were just superb. At that time, I was working a lot with Danny Sutton and Bill Thompson. And I tell you, these guys gave me such good advice and helped me navigate kind of where I needed to go, not necessarily funding opportunities, but in looking at, okay, if you're going to ask for funding opportunities, you need to make sure that you understand what you're looking at exactly on equipment and supplies and sanitation requirements and the things that I need up front. So that's another huge piece of advice for anyone looking at adding any operations, to your milk plant. Call TDA, get those inspectors and those guys involved from the very first thing, because they're on your side and they're wanting to help you. They're wanting you to be successful, and they'll partner with you on that. And they have walked every step of this with me, and even now as we do the things we do. So started many conversations with these guys, but so I was able to start writing some grants, and that's also a daunting task to write grants. It's something that I'd done a little bit of it on some small grants, but nothing where I'm asking for, potentially $100,000 or more. That's a lot of money. And so, I go out and I start writing these grants. Farm Credit Mid-America, they were really great. They had a grant program at the time through one of their foundations. Wrote a huge grant with those guys. Tennessee Farmers Cooperative and CoBank was another. Tennessee Farm Bureau. Those are the first three that actually jumped in. That actually, when I had written the grants, I'd written some others, was turned down. Didn't really get anywhere with that. but these folks were the first ones that really jumped on board and helped me out with some actual funding. And of course, in the meantime, while I'm writing this, I have to step back and look at my equipment needs again, because the equipment needs, let me see if I can go forward in the slides here a little bit. Yeah, the preliminary equipment list, hopefully you guys can see that. Those are real numbers. It's kind of the pie in the sky of what I was looking at. And so these are some things that we looked at we probably need, because when you're getting ready to expand a product line, I already kind of know what my throughput is in my plant right now. I mean, I know how much milk we can push through there. My dairy farm has plenty of milk. Even today at the capacity we're running now, we're still only using about 25 to 30% of the milk we produce at the dairy. So I have plenty of milk there. So for me, it all comes down to a bottleneck within the plant. And so I've got to look at, what are my needs? And so after going to campus, realizing that they were not going to fund, this equipment list that you see, $600 and something thousand. And honestly, today, this equipment list is a little bit old, a little bit dated. That could easily push up to $700,000-800,000, I'm sure now. And so had to go through and start picking out, okay, what equipment within this pie in the sky list is essential? What are the things I have to prove it, to be able to just put milk in a bottle for me? Now, your situation may be different, but for me, it's put milk in a bottle. And so we started picking out some things. Obviously, something we didn't have that we had to have was a bottler. And so I started looking around at bottlers, and I looked at I looked at what I wanted first, which was like a Federal 6-valve bottler. Some of you guys may have those or may have looked at those, but those things are anywhere from $40,000 to the one that you found in a barn with pigeons roosting on it that would require another $40,000 to just get it in operational order, to the ones that are fully functional that can be $120,000. I obviously didn't have that kind of money, and really the grants that I was looking at that moment weren't offering that type of money. So I was able to had to drop back and found a company in Maryland, Hagerstown, Maryland, Dairy Heritage Group, and they had a 2-valve filler that would fit the needs that we had at the moment. And that filler at that time was about $65,000. So that's kind of what I went after. That's kind of a long way around to tell the story of where I went with the first grants I received. So you look at all this list, and the bottler was the first thing we decided we had to go for. We could kind of retrofit some piping and other things to make it work, but we had to have a way to get milk in a bottle. So first grants I received, again, from Farm Credit Mid-America, TFC, CoBank, and Farm Bureau. I put all those grants together and was able to buy this bottler. And that actually came in June of 2016. So you understand that I presented my business plan in January or actually 1st of February, 2014. Well, it was June of 2016 before I was able to actually get the grant funding and then get the bottler purchased, because I'm on a bid system. I have to bid everything out. That takes time as well. And then for the bottler to actually arrive. And so that was a huge deal for us. And again, I'm still in this mindset, this process of thinking, I've got to prove this thing. So I'm still writing more grants. I'm still asking for more money from different sources, alumni. I'm meeting with alumni, anywhere I can to find funding sources. So we were able to get the bottler in. It was delivered again in June of 2016. We were able to then get it in the building. It's a story behind that. I may bore you guys with that, but it weighed 600 pounds, and I got 6 college guys to actually pick it up. We had to hook it under a door and through a door to even get it inside the room. It was literally about 3/4 of an inch too tall to actually fit straight through the door. with the capping machine on it. So in the meantime, I'm also working on other things. There's other things that we have to have. We have to have bottles. I'm asking vendors to send me samples of bottles, bottle caps, labels. If you've not dealt with labeling, you've missed out on a huge, wonderful experience of digging through the PMO, digging through FDA regulation, and then even some suggestions from TDA, which actually the suggestions from TDA are very helpful. So labeling is another barrier altogether. Fortunately, just real quick on the labeling side of things, for fluid milk, so much of that is standard. I was able to actually just kind of pull off the internet nutritional values for things like 2% milk and skim milk and that sort of thing, pretty much off the internet. That was pretty easy. But for us, our big thing is chocolate milk. I told you our building opened in 1968. By 1970, they had come up with a huge, our secret chocolate milk recipe, which we're famous for now. Just to give you an example, if we bottle 1,000 bottles of chocolate milk, we might bottle 100 whole white milk bottles, and I'm talking pints. So that's how popular our chocolate milk is. Today, the guys back in the back they'll probably bottle 2,500 just chocolate pints for us, along with all the other things. But so we really need to find this nutritional labeling for our chocolate milk. And so I wound up having to pay, and it was University of Georgia. They have a food science lab where they can do nutritional labeling. I sent them samples of our milk. They did the analytical part of that, and then shot back our labeling requirements. And so labeling is let me get to one of our labels. Labeling is a huge deal. And this is our first label we had that you see on the screen. We had a square bottle and we were hand labeling. Thank goodness for the grace of Bill Thompson and TDA, who watched over everything we were doing, and for a very temporary basis allowed us to do that. But that was a very temporary agreement, and we very quickly again had to write another grant to purchase a label machine. The label machine was about $10,000 by itself, and so that was another grant that I wrote, was awarded, and another grant opportunity for you guys out there. And so just something to look at and think about. So obviously very quickly we're able to get that automated and get away from all that hand labeling business. But so labels were something else that in the meantime, while we were trying to get all of this set up, that I had to come up with. The branding of your product is a huge deal also. Branding of your product, whatever it may be, whether it's a new product line or not, is something that tells your story. There's a lot to be said in a logo, in a label, that people will see each and every time and recognize as yours. And so, for us, it took me probably took about 8 months to develop the label altogether. Probably took me about 4 months, maybe 5 months to actually work on that logo. I had students look at it, had faculty look at it. We had a lot of ideas, a lot of exchanges. My staff, we went back and forth on the logo, but we finally came up with what you see on your screen now. And we chose that again because that tells our story. And if you'll think back to something I said, early on, if about 1922 and 1920, I have a couple of pictures of the first or one of those graduating classes from our ag department in front of a barn, the old dairy barn with all the Jersey cows in front of it. And I should have gotten a picture of that on my PowerPoints, but I apologize, I didn't get that done. But we looked at that picture and we kept going back to it and going back to it, thinking this provides a heritage for us. This shows our legacy that we're trying to continue of dairy on this campus and dairy within this department. And so we actually took a picture of that, a conceptual drawing, I should say, from that picture, and came up with our logo, as you see there. That barn is from a picture, that picture from I think that actual picture was from 1920. And so, so that's actually the barn that sat behind my building that we used to milk cows in and bottle in, back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, as I said. And so that connects to our alumni. That tells the story of our heritage. And so it's very important that we picked something that really was a conversation piece. I have so many great conversations about that, about just that logo and where it came from. And the alumni love it. Our local community loves it. And if you're like our situation, the local community wants to know your story. They want to know where your milk came from. How long have you been in the business? How long has your family been doing this? And they understand that our farming practices are hard work. It's not easy, but they want to know who you are. This logo by itself, this branding, this trademarking has opened up so many doors for us. And it's really, really a cool conversation piece for us. And so again, that's something that's going on in the background. Also, while we're testing bottles, we're trying to decide, do we want to use, opaque bottles, or do we want to use clear bottles, and that sort of thing. Let me get back. I'll show you some of our, I get into a little more detail on our expense forecasting. And then these are real numbers. They may be kind of small on your screen, I understand. But these are real numbers for us back in 2016 these are gallon jugs, half-gallon jugs, pints, and caps for all that. And these are the price and the total per box and that sort of thing that we're paying at that time. And as you can see, this is kind of a neat, if you can see this, it's kind of a neat screen to look at. And I actually presented this in a class yesterday, and I forgot that I'd had this on there. But if you look at the bottom of that graph, you'll see the net present value of a gallon of milk for our creamery at that time. That's a real number that we came up with in 2014, 2015 fiscal year. And obviously this is before we actually started selling the gallons, but this is part of that forecasting that was in the business plan. So it's going to cost us about $3.11 to produce that gallon of whole white milk. No, I'm sorry. That would be for the gallon of chocolate milk, because that would include the sugar and the powder that we use. So that's something you can look at, and maybe that'll help you somewhere along the way. And I understand that prices have definitely changed even in just the last 6 months. And so that has been adjusted on our end. But that was one of the initial figures we came up with. And so hopefully that's something that you can look at and use. And so back to the equipment, we're able to get this bottler in place. We had to pay another, at that time, once I got the bottler in place, I was actually able to get the administration to see that we were serious about it. They were really going for it. They did pitch in $10,000, because it cost us $10,000 in just piping to get the filler, the filler, as we call it, the bottler, hooked up to our system. And you wouldn't think, when I can go in there now and I can show you the exact pipes, it just seems like there's 3 or 4 pipes, but it was a $10,000 job, because stainless steel is not cheap, no matter what you do. And so administration actually kicked that in and helped me out on that just a little bit. And so we started running water through the system. We started bottling water, not to sell, but to test our bottles, test our capper, and test everything. And so we kind of started getting our system down pat. And by about March of 2017, things started coming together. The bottler's in place, the piping's in place. We've settled on bottles that we're going to use, caps we're going to use. Labels are coming. We get our first labels in March of 2017. They look good. They look great. We're getting those set up. Again, we're talking to a lot of alumni. We're starting to get a few donations, a little help there. We're continuing to write grant funding opportunities. As you can see, there's a lot of other things on this equipment list that we really need and would like to have. At this time, I still don't have a refrigerated delivery truck. I'm planning on, fortunately for us, we have a delivery truck that's insulated well, and a 5-gallon bag holds its temperature very well for a long time. And so we're just delivering on campus, so we can take it out of our cooler, put it in that delivery truck, and get it to campus in good order, and it holds its temperature. But bottles don't hold their temperature that way. And so one of the next big hurdles that I have is, again, trying to get funding for, this refrigerated trucks. I know probably in a bit large scheme of things, that's going to be the next thing, because I'm not going to be able to continue to prove that we can do this bottling thing if I can't get the products from my cooler to a vendor in good order and in safe temperature order. Again, in the background, there's conversations with TDA going on all the time. Time and temperature, all these things are functions that you have to pay attention to. And in the plant, obviously pressure is part of that as well, but just delivery, you're looking at time and temperatures. March 2017, we get everything kind of in place, and we decide we're gonna start this thing. We're gonna make it happen. So we decide that June 23rd is our date. We're going to have our grand opening, our grand rebranding of the label that I just showed you. And so we do a big to do. And I would encourage you, even on your farms, to do this. Talk to your local news folks, talk to your radio people, talk to your, whatever your newspaper is, or social media. I'm a little old school, bear with me. A lot of the students helped us on the social media side of things. When you get ready to rebrand and kind of do that grand opening for your product line, put it out there, because people, again, they want to know your story. They want to know who you are. They want to develop that relationship with you and your farm and whatever business you're in that's a value-added business. And you need that personal relationship. And so we did that. Even though we've been in business for over 50 years, in where we're at now, we've been in the dairy business since 1911. We needed to have that grand reopening. And it was a huge success for us. It was so much fun. We had, I think there were between 300 and 400 people that showed up. We just sent out a blast inviting everyone, and we gave out free chocolate milk and whole white milk, and huge success. But what that did, that really jump started our bottling business. It let people know that, hey, here we are, we're opening our doors, we're ready for you to come in and make orders from us for your shop. And so it was a really good thing. Had all the news people there and all the social media things there. Actually, you can go online, you can look up MTSU Creamery debut or grand opening, and then the videos are still there. And so that was a big success for us. And so from there, things really took off. And as I tell people, that was 2017. We've been behind ever since. The business really, really took off. And so we started delivering milk on campus first. Then we started delivering milk to a few little mom and pop stores right around campus. And now we deliver ourselves all the way to some to Lebanon, to Manchester, and then about 20 different stores right here around Murfreesboro, including, notwithstanding campus as well. We still provide for campus. And again, we need that delivery truck I keep mentioning. So the kind of the neat part of this story turns right here, because by 2018, I'm kind of going in and we're seeing the numbers come in of that first year. We go back to the business plan. I had forecasted some numbers. Let me see if I can get on this PowerPoint again. We had, this kind of goes back to our strategy and implementation. We're implementing now our strategy. I'd actually forecasted some numbers that we would hit within that first fiscal year. And I'll tell you, as we get into 2018, we nailed them. We hit them dead on, which was fantastic. And by 2019, we're right on track doing the same thing. And that's when I go to the dean, and we're in our second year, and our numbers are just going out the roof. We're selling every drop of milk we can bottle. And it was kind of neat. In that 2019 late, in 2019, I put together my numbers, and by 2020, I'm going in there and I'm kind of telling the dean we need some help funding. And he says, okay, I can help you a little bit more. We had alumni who threw in some money, and we were able to purchase the truck you see on your screen now. The truck body we got from a local dealership. The box came from, it's a Great Dane company, but it came from Rice Lake, Wisconsin. And for small trucks, for some of you guys trying to get into this business, small trucks like that little truck, we're using it now. It's phenomenal. It does a perfect job for us. It's rated for, so many times the door opens and closes, because the unit is a cold plate unit. So it only runs when it's plugged up to the wall. When we unplug it and make deliveries, the cold plates in the top just keep everything cold. But it works fantastic. I actually flew to Minneapolis, St. Paul, rented a car, drove all the way across the state of Wisconsin to Rice Lake. And I got in that truck to drive it back. It had 8 miles on it. And when I pulled into Murfreesboro, it had over 900 miles on it. So I put the first, 900 miles on that truck, just driving it back with that box on it. Been fantastic. So we get the box, we're able to, and I'm gonna kind of run on through this a little bit toward the end of this. We're able to increase the business. Second year, we nailed the numbers on the business plan exactly. Again, I'm telling you that forecasting, all that work put into talking to potential customers paid off. So by that, 2020, I'm going back into the dean again, and I'm able to look the dean in the eye with the business plan in my hand. And this is 6 years, almost 6 years later. And I pushed that business plan back to the dean. And I said, Bud, that's his name, Bud, super guy. I said, I think I proved it. And I had the current financials to go with it. I said, I've proved it. And he thumbed through it again, just like he did in 2014. And he said, you're darn right. You did prove it. And which was a huge deal for me, because he was actually at that point, that's when he became my banker. Okay. I still more or less borrow money, you might say, from the department. And I'm kind of asked to pay that back. And so, but the dean was then more willing to let go of some funds and try to help us out. Now I'm still writing grant funding. I'm still, even to this day, I still try to write for different grants. The CARES Act, just like many of you were able to get funding through that. When that came through during COVID, we were able to purchase a larger truck to go pick up our milk. We were able to purchase a new a more automated wash system, not fully automated, but a more automated wash system for our sanitary practices within the plant. Again, working with TDA on making those purchases was hugely beneficial on the front end, making sure they met standards for the PMO, 3A standards, and sanitary practices. standards and that sort of thing. And so that grant funding is so important. Something else, as my time starts getting close here, something else that we started during COVID, because as you guys know, during COVID, a lot of our business on campus just about shut down because they weren't having classes. Now our business off campus actually started increasing because during COVID we had milk. And this is something that's so important to you, because if you're looking at starting your own farm business or adding a product line, this goes back to that whole attitude right now of people wanting to know they have a secure supply of milk products or packaged beef or whatever it is you're into. And they want to know where it comes from. And COVID pushed that idea even more. And so we had milk the entire time, had plenty of it. We actually started using a distributor during that time. And that distributor started taking our milk to a couple of local mom and pop grocery stores who couldn't get milk from the big plants at that time for supply chain issues or whatever it is. Well, we had it. So it actually increased our business through those venues, even though our campus business dropped down. But during that time, we jumped into the farmers market. It was still going on during COVID. We're all wearing our masks and gloves and whatever, but we had to do something to replace that lost revenue from campus. And so the farmers market was something that we started doing. This is just my little checkoff sheet. I have students working this thing, so we have to have to tell them to take the trash bags. Okay, we need trash bags there, things like that. And we had some metal signs made up that you see on your screen. I actually sold those and still do as a fundraiser. People love that throwback metal sign. It's a really cool thing. And so we're still selling those as a fundraiser. But I've got to tell you, because we jumped into the farmers market and we had milk during COVID that other people didn't, up to that time, we recorded our best financial year ever during COVID up to that time, which was pretty amazing to me. When you hear all the stories of hard times and things, we were actually very, very blessed during that time. And again, please understand through this, and I know I'm a university, and I know people say, oh, you've got deep pockets to pick from. I don't. They don't give me money. Again, I've been able to get a few, small funding opportunities through my dean, but I have to pay that back just like a bank loan. The grants that I've been able to get are open to you too. Like I'm talking about Farm Credit, TFC, CoBank, Farm Bureau, these folks, now this value added source, these things are open to you as well. I have to go through the same things. My costs are the same. So if you come to me and talk to me about costs of a bottle of milk or a gallon of milk, I'm using real numbers. I add electric in there, water and sewage in there. I have to pay the same for bottles and caps as you do. So there's not any price cuts for me. So I want this to be a real case study for you. It's a real deal. And hopefully it can help you with whatever you're thinking about doing. Is kind of the end goal with that. But again, we jumped into the farmers market, hugely successful for us. Debut ceremony, that's just a little thing we came up with for that. And to date, we're actually, I've actually turned down a lot of business to date because we are kind of at capacity now. We're to a point now, if we're going to add customers, I need to add on to our building. I've got to expand. Again, we're using about 25 to 30% of the milk we produce at the dairy. The other 70, 75% of the milk that we produce at the dairy is sold on the raw milk market. We're actually in contract with Borden Foods at this time. We were in with Maryland, Virginia for a while, but now we're in with Borden Foods. So some of you guys may be able to relate to that. And price is good now for milk. Expenses are right there with it, though. That's the only problem. So we're at a point where I'm turning business down. And I'll just tell you straight up, I've turned down $180,000 worth of business this year. I just can't supply it. My plant's too small and I don't have enough personnel. and have yet to talk the person, our administration, into loaning me about $8 or $10 million to make the size expansion that I'd like to, because an expansion for me in my pie in the sky idea would be to include some academic areas for us. Okay, something that you may not need to do in your operation, but I would like to add some areas that would have a greater teachable format to students and or folks coming in who might want to learn to process or thinking about doing it and want to process with us for a day or two and understand what they're getting into. And so I've turned down that much business. And what I want to say kind of at the end of it, we have been able to purchase a few items. That equipment list that you saw earlier for $600 something thousand, I still don't have all of that equipment. I think to date, using CARES Act funding, the grants I've mentioned, a little bit of help from the administration, again, those loans, I think we're up to about $340,000 worth of equipment we've been able to put in the plant, which has been huge for us. It's been a big deal, but that's kind of where we're at in that equipment list. We still don't have all of that. But it's at this time, I'll say before we started bottling and we were just bagging, our revenues were in the $32,000, $34,000 range each year from our little plant. And that's from just bagging, providing it to campus. I think last year, I think our total revenues were about $167,000. And again, I turned down $180,000. I did the math on what was available to me and what I could have actually produced. So you can do the math from there. If I had enough facilities and had the labor to do it, we would more than double the revenue that we brought in. But again, we are our number one goal is to educate, and hopefully what I'm doing here today is part of that educational process, something that will help you guys. And I welcome, our philosophy is anybody who's interested in processing or want to see fluid milk production and are thinking about getting into it, you are always welcome to come to our plant, spend a day processing with us. Won't cost you a dime other than your time, and see if it's something you're interested in and see if it's something you think you can do. And I'll be glad to talk to any of you anytime. So my time is winding down, and I would like to open it up, I guess, to any questions you guys may have. I'm be glad to answer anything about what we've done or what we're doing now, or whatever, if you have anything. If you want to see one of the other slides, I'll be glad to go back to that. So.
Well, thank you so much, Matthew. And one question that I have, especially since the logo is up and right there, how did you develop it? I know you mentioned that you got a lot of input from students and staff. Did you work with a certain company, or did you work with somebody, a professor on campus that's in marketing, or how did you?
Yeah, actually, I'm so glad you asked me that question, because that was something on my mind earlier today that I did want to mention. I started with, and people make fun of me because I'm old school. I started with a box of crayons and coloring pencils in my office. They're sitting right there beside me right now. The students loved it because they helped me. We sat down many times and just started drawing all these different logos. We actually kind of drew this one too. It's terrible, but I took those drawings, these pencil and crayon drawings. We actually have a creative and visual services on campus. And again, don't think that's free to me. I had to pay for that. The charges, what they charge me, are very close to what you would charge to a marketing group outside of campus to pay. I had to pay for those services, but I took those drawings to the folks over there that actually loved the fact that we'd drawn it out for them. And we took the picture of the barn as well with us. And then they did that conceptual drawing and kind of created. Now, I kind of came up with the idea with the badge look there. I really liked that, but they dressed it up and made it just so much more than I could have ever done. And I know a little bit about some of that because my wife has her own business as well, and we did a lot of the branding with an outside firm. So I know the costs are pretty close that I had to pay to make this happen on campus as well as off. So yeah, I did work with some folks though in the end product.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It definitely just goes to show how much you can get started on your own and then develop from there.
Yeah. It depends how much desire and drive you have to make it work. And people I find that are trying to do this business are passionate about what they do, and they have that drive and that desire. And so if you have that kind of drive and desire, you're going to buy a box of crayons. Okay. I'm just, it's a lot of fun to get into all this. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun at the same time to me.
One other question I have is, you mentioned the next step is a facility expansion. So what else would that involve? Would you also branch out into other product lines?
Yeah, absolutely. An expansion would definitely include cheese for us. It's something we're interested in. We have some expertise within the department when it comes to cheese, and cheese is a storable product. And that aging process would help us utilize more of the milk from the creamery. Everybody says, well, ice cream has a greater profit margin. Yes, it does. And ice cream is something that we would probably get into just because we know the demand is there. And we would require about 3 different areas at that moment. And so that's ice cream and cheese are definitely part of an expansion scheme for us. If we can get to that point. We're already talking to alumni. The administration knows we're talking to them. I'm kind of working on the business plan that would kind of show that. And so, yeah, definitely some other product lines at this moment. We actually had a guy co-pack some ice cream for us. We actually took to him our milk and our cream, and he made it. And then we brought it back and sold it at the farmer's market. And it was a huge success. I mean, it really did well for us. We didn't do it this year because we found that our problem was keeping it frozen solid. When we take it out of our cooler, take it to the farmer's market, and let's say we didn't sell a couple of pints or quarts or whatever, we had to take it back. We noticed we'd get that little bit of glazing on top and ice crystals would form. So we don't have our process ready to do that yet. And so, but the ice cream was a huge success, made a lot of money off of it, actually. I paid $5 per quart. I sold it for 10, sold a lot at $10 a quart, believe it or not. So that, yeah, definitely more product lines.
Well, I've got just, sorry, was somebody else asking a question?
No, I didn't. Go ahead.
Oh, so just one last question from me. Have you ever done any short courses at the dairy?
Not in my tenure here. And one reason we've not really made it something that official. We've probably had 7, 8, 9 different, probably about 9 different farms in our plant over the past few years, because it's an open invitation. If you want to come in and talk to us, come talk to us anytime. If you want to come in and process to understand how it works and what you may need, then come in and process with us. That's kind of the way we've handled that, instead of actually making it an actual short course situation. And we find that fits into a lot of dairy farmers schedules better, because then they can just say, hey, can we come, Wednesday, 2 weeks from now, and process for maybe 3-4 hours with you? And we're like, yes, absolutely, come on. And that works really well. So that's the way we've handled that kind of instead. So, and it's an open door policy with that. It's just, all they got to do is contact me.
Awesome. Well, nothing beats that, getting hands-on experience and and being able to do it for free. That's an awesome opportunity.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Matthew. That was an amazing story, and really, really helpful to get that case study. I just want to mention 2 weeks from today, Sarah Cornelis from Penn State Extension will be doing the last workshop in our series. So her workshop is titled Tools for Analyzing Feasibility and Profitability. So thank you all for joining today, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you again.
Thank you.